Welcome back to the Hockey Show, and we are, of course, talking about the New Jersey Devils and what they need to do this offseason. Now, before we talk about the offseason, we, of course, have to talk about the regular season, because that's what the offseason takes place after, and what they need to learn from and do, and blah, blah, blah. So, the regular season for the Devils was absolutely fantastic, finishing third in the NHL, only 2 spots behind the best recorded season ever in NHL history by the Bruins. So, finishing third to that is not too bad. And the reason they can think that is because of the breakouts of Jack Hughes and Dawson Mercer, too. Jack Hughes especially, though, making a franchise record for points in a season. The guy's phenomenal. Jack Hughes, obviously a franchise player, and he just needed a couple of years, not for his own development, but also teams like the Devils here that kind of... They didn't have anyone for him to work with, you know? Like, they have Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. Like, they have these young guys that they have no one to work with, you know? They don't have that Taylor Hall because he used to be on the team. He wasn't there for Jack Hughes to learn and play off of and get a little boost from better players, right? He didn't have any of that. So, finally, out of nowhere, he finally snaps into that top gear and is zooming and just being a franchise player at this point, right? They get to the second round, but lose to, my saying would be probably just lack of experience in the playoffs and having that lack of fight and fire and need to win. I mean, especially with the Hurricanes, with how much they've gone through in the playoffs and history. Like, they have a real passion, a real chip on their shoulder. The Devils, they're the rebels. They're young, and they don't know what that playoff experience is like, so they get knocked out, and I think it's just due to inexperience to the playoffs. And now here we are. Now, what do you do with this team? My opinion, you got to keep the band together. This isn't a scenario where you break out everyone and you're like, okay, we got to retool, we got to bring in some players, Jack Hughes isn't good enough, blah, 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 something like that, right? Obviously, that's not going to happen. But this is a scenario where this team, like the Devils, like Tampa Bay, where it's like you got to keep this core together. You got to keep this group together. They like each other. You can tell they're working off each other, and things are only going to get better. They're only going to get better for this team because they've got a lot of good things going for them. Right now, though, one of the nice things is that they signed Jesper Bratt for a very long time. This guy, kind of a star out of nowhere. Breaking out last season and continuing this season, he gets rewarded for his proven efforts with an 8-year contract for $7.875. And I got to be honest, I actually think that this is like the perfect number for the guy. $7.875 for him feels like the exact perfect number. Like he's not a $6 million player. He's worth above that. But is he an $8 million player? I don't know. $8 million seems like a real gem. Bratt's a great player, but is he a gem? I don't know. I'd say he's like high in $7 million, and that's what he got. I feel like it's the perfect number. Just saying something out there that means nothing. So great signing for them, and the next big thing for them to sign is Timo Meyer. Now, before I talk about him, they've got $26.4 million left in cap space that they can spend. So that's a good amount of change for them to spend, right? But they have 7 RFAs, namely Timo Meyer and Jesper Bratt, which he's been signed, and now Meyer's going to arbitration. So 5 of those are forwards. One of them is a defenseman in Ball, and one of them is Mackenzie Blackwood, who is seemingly out of New Jersey as he's been kind of a failed experiment, which I don't really know if that's his fault. I think it's kind of more that the Devils, once again, that kind of stunted growth of Jack Hughes, where he's never been able to be on a good team, and when your team's very mediocre and not got very good defense in front of him for so long, it kind of weighs on you, and you're kind of like, well, I mean, he's been there for as long as I remember, really paying attention to hockey, and I feel bad because it's I think he definitely needs a change of scenery, and I think the Devils can move on from him and move on to Vanacek and Schmid, and I think they're also looking for another goaltender, and Kaapo Kahkonen maybe. So, who knows what they're doing there with goaltending, but I do think that Blackwood out of town is the right move for both parties. But they got a lot of RFAs assigned and a lot of money to spend as well. So, Timo Meyer, 40-goal scorer. This guy is a proven commodity, a proven asset to any team in the NHL. And for his first handful of games with the New Jersey Devils in the playoffs, I gotta say, I love Timo Meyer. I've been a Sharks fan my whole life, and he's always been my top 2 favorite players on the Sharks. And On the Devils, I just gotta say, I feel like he just didn't mesh well with the team, but my guess is that it's more like he is still a young guy for the most part, and he's only played in San Jose his whole career, playing with Logan Couture and Tomas Hertl and Brent Burns. Like, he's been used to the same players for so long that I feel like making the jump over to such a fast-paced team in Jack Hughes and everyone on that whole team, and Andre Palat and whoever the hell else, like, he wasn't used to playing on such a fast-paced, good team that I feel like he wasn't at the right gear. So I think Meyer is just going to get back into place. But for right now, they're going to arbitration. And for Meyer, reportedly, he's looking for long-term, 8 years, and that means a lot of money his way. 8-year contracts means that you're looking for the big bucks because you want assurance. And for Timo Meyer being a pure goal scorer who at one point had the fastest speed in the season, recorded faster than McDavid or even Makar or McKinnon, he had the fastest speed in the NHL one season. So this guy's a stud. Timo Meyer is an absolute stud. He's got the hands, he's got the speed, he's got the moves, he's got the shot, he's got a hell of a shot. And Meyer, he's got the playoff experience too. So for him, I would assume that he's going to get at bare minimum $8 million. If Cole Caulfield and Jesper Bratt are getting 7-point-something million for those guys, he's getting at least 8. I think 8 is actually the perfect number, maybe like 8.5. I wouldn't say he's a $9 million player, and he's definitely not 10. So I would say 8 to 8.5 is my guess. But I would say around, so 8 and 8.5, whatever. So for me, that would give them around $18 million left. Let's just keep it a nice $18 million. That just makes the numbers simpler for everyone to keep follow of. So $8 million for him, I would assume, but arbitration, who knows what the team wants. Maybe the team wins and they only sign him for $6.5 million. Who knows what happens there, right? So there's no way of knowing, but my speculation, I think the right move would be $8 million for, even if it's for a year, if they don't even want to keep him on the team for very long. But I think Timo is the right kind of player for the Devils, too. I think the Devils, with Jack Hughes being just such an all-around player, same thing for Nico Hischier being a two-way guy. Bratt is a great all-around player as well, and Dawson Mercer's great. Like, I feel like they've got a lot of great all-around guys, but what they don't have is a pure goal scorer who can power his way through guys and make a lot of speed, and that's Timo Meyer being a pure goal scorer. I think he's the perfect one. Perfect fit with the team. I just think he needs a better mesh and have more practice and time with the boys. And Meyer needs to stay on this team. So Meyer, perfect key for the future. Now, going from there, they still have set 14 spots once they sign Meyer. They still have 14 out of 23 spots filled. So they still got a handful of spots that they still need to sign on this team. 9, actually. So a lot of players they still need to sign. Now, probably they're going to keep from the free agents here. For me, Erik Haula, I do think he's going to stay on this team with the Boston Bruins. And for him, I think he said that I don't know why I brought up the Boston Bruins. He said that he really likes to stay here, and I think I think he was a key part of the team, and I think he looked really good with them. So Haula, I think he stays. Tomas Tatar, I don't see going anywhere, but I could see them moving on from him. So I would say for him, 3 to 4. Haula, if you're not looking at the screen, I would assume gets between 2 to 4. He got like 2.2 something last season, I think. So I think probably like 2.5 to 3 is more likely what he's going to get. Tatar, 3 to 4, I would say for him probably 3. Michael McLeod, I would assume between 2 to 3, but it could be even low as 1 for a guy like him. He hasn't really proven himself to be a huge commodity yet, but I don't think they're going to move on from him being an RFA. Sharon Govich, I think, still needs some more time to prove himself, so I would assume only 2 to 3.5. And Jesper Bachfist, I would still say definitely needs more time to prove himself. I'd say 1 to 2 million. Now, guys like Ball, I would assume they're going to keep around, but I don't think it's even worth mentioning like how much he's going to get. Probably $1 million or even less than that. So for him, I think his name's Tim Ball, to be honest. I don't really know his name, if I'm being completely honest. I would assume like 1 to maybe less than that. So not even worth mentioning there. So for me, I'm getting around 10 to 16.5 million for the guys that they're most likely going to keep. Now there's some other guys like Miles Wood that they still need to keep on the team. And for him, who knows what he gets. They could even move on from him. I don't think he's necessarily needed on the team. So for me, I would assume, with just simple assuming and speculation, 10 to 16.5 million. So I would say they have around 8 to 1.5 million left. Now, 8 million, they got a lot of money they can spend. Now, just depending on how everyone signs and whatever, who knows? I could be completely wrong. Guy like Howell could sign him for $5 million for all I know. I have no idea. But for me, I would think that he only gets around 2 to 4 million. So going from there, 8 to 1.5 million. There's such a gray area there. Who knows what they could do? They could go out. They can maybe sign a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi to a contract if they have $8 million to spend. Or if they have 1.5, I think they're still fine because they got some good guys coming up the wings here. First off, some promotions. Simon Nemec, of course, going on to the defense. This guy was a huge pickup for them last year's draft. I think the perfect pick for second overall. They don't need another top guy, another top four. They're already so clotted up there. They need some good defense, and they just moved out Damon Severson, and I think they did that for the purposes of bringing up Simon Nemec. I think they thought that they needed that. Severson was done. His time was done there, and Nemec was the perfect time to bring him up and get him on the NHL roster. And for the second one, Alexander Holtz especially. I think this guy's going to be a huge star, Swedish guy. I think he's once again another goal scorer that they're going to get, and he's been great. He got 14 points. He got 4 points in 14 games that he played in the NHL last season, and in 19 games in the AHL, he got 14 points, and in the playoffs this year for the Utica Comets, he got 5 points in 6 games. No goals, though, only 5 assists, but still getting points on the board. He's almost a point per game in the AHL, so pretty fantastic for Alexander Holtz down there. I definitely think they probably move him up and try to get him on the roster. I would hope he makes it, but who knows if he actually does. I would assume he does, but Nemec especially, I think, is going to make his way up there. So overall, they still have some roster spots left after that, right? I mean, on the board here, those 2 guys, if they make the team, plus the 5 that I made up over here, that's 7 guys. Still going to need 2 more players, and with the money that they have left over, I would assume that it's going to be around $5 million, and with the bringing up of those guys, and they do have a couple more prospects that they could bring up in Casey, but he's a defenseman. I don't really know if they need another defenseman on the team. Hallinan, I think, is a good prospect, but I don't know, to be honest. So overall, I think offensively, once again, they're so good offensively. This is a team, and let me keep in mind, I forgot to mention, Luke Hughes as well. The guy looked fantastic. I don't know why they didn't give him any time in the playoffs. He was amazing in the few games he played in the regular season. So Luke Hughes as well on the defensive side. I think the Devils, they look great defensively. Offensively, they are so good up front. And Hughes, Heischer, Andre Palat, Timo Meyer, Andre Palat. Did I say Palat already? I don't know. I mean, Mercer. I don't know who I've said already. But the team is fantastic offensively. Defensively, maybe with Luke Hughes now. This team, Hamilton, such a good team all around. Goaltending-wise, could be the biggest question mark. And I do think they're going to address that. And they do have some assets that they could trade away for that trade. And we know how goaltenders go. They always go for so much less than you think. I can easily see them throwing a second-round pick for a guy like Kaapo Kahkonen, and they could have a next Vezina candidate right there. So who knows? Maybe a guy like Jeremy Swayman they go for somehow. Maybe they switch Blackwood for Swayman. That's an idea, just throwing out there. And overall, the Devils, they got so many young guys, and their team's young too. Like, they're not old. They have got some young. Andre Palat's kind of on the older side, but overall, the team's young. They've got a lot of stars on this team, and defensively they're great. Offensively they're great. Goaltending wise, I think they're gonna address it very well. And overall, this team just looks like a stud. This team all over the board. They're going to be stars. They're going to be stars. Last year, they were amazing. This year, I think they're going to even be better with the guys like Dawson Mercer going to go from 50 points to 70 this year. And Jack Hughes only going to get better with his biggest move, and now playing with Timo Meyer being a true goal scorer. How many more assists he's going to get off of that guy? I think it's just going to be phenomenal, and I think the Devils, definitely a dynasty in the making. And I think this year, with that chip on their shoulder from last playoff run, I think they're only going to be better in the playoffs. So that is all I got to say. And until next time, thank you for watching this. And please, if you've made it this far, pick up your free subscription. I'm begging you, please. And until next time, too sweet. Have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.